Texas Governor Rick Perry, currently jockeying with Mitt Romney for frontrunner status in the Republican presidential race. Rick Perry has never lost an election in his 26 years in elected office. Not one. And that is not because he hasn't had hard fights, not because he hasn't had serious, well-funded, high-profile, big-name challengers. Just last year, for example, he was challenged in his re-election bid for Texas governor by Texas's long-serving popular Republican senator, Kay Bailey Hutchison. And there were two things that I found surprising that the Hutchison for Governor campaign tried to use against Rick Perry. The first was the more or less famous Rick Perry gay hidden text in the Kay Bailey Hutchison campaign website. Do you remember this story? A reporter for the Austin American-Statesman found in the summer of 2009 that the Kay Bailey Hutchison campaign website included a huge long list of terms that seemed designed to make her website pop on search engines. You know how sometimes when you Google something and you click on one of the search results, but the website that comes up doesn't actually contain the terms that you searched for? That sometimes happens because websites have this hidden text that you don't see as a user, but that hidden text does get read and indexed by search engines. Search engines hate the hidden text trick on websites, but people do it anyway. In the case of the Kay Bailey Hutchison campaign website, when she was running for Texas governor against Rick Perry, among the hidden text that she had hidden on her website was the phrase Rick Perry gay. She actually had Rick Perry gay up on the hidden text of her website twice. When asked by the Austin American-Statesman about this, the Hutchison campaign said they had not done it on purpose. They said it was a computer-generated result of the fact that a lot of people were searching the phrase Rick Perry gay. Even in saying they would make sure that hidden text was going to be taken down right away, the campaign made sure to get this quote into the newspaper. Listen to this. "We did not know these offensive word associations were being searched for by hundreds of thousands of Texans every day. Nor do we condone their computer-generated existence on our website. They will be removed promptly." So in other words, we're not saying Rick Perry is gay. We would never say that. We find the whole idea offensive, but apparently a lot of people want to know. It is not unheard of for candidates to launch whisper campaigns and insinuate that their opponents are gay. It happened in 1994 when George W. Bush ran successfully against Ann Richards in Texas for governor. It happened again in the Republican Senate primary last year in Delaware when Christine O'Donnell weirdly tried to insinuate over and over again that Congressman Mike Castle was secretly gay. Insinuations that a candidate is gay, those insinuations turning up in a gubernatorial campaign is not an unprecedented thing in American politics. But even though it is not unprecedented, I think it was still a surprising gambit from the Kay Bailey Hutchison campaign. The other surprising thing she tried to use against Rick Perry was the case of Cameron Todd Willingham. Cameron Todd Willingham was executed by the state of Texas in 2004 despite a lot of rather troubling flaws in the evidence used to convict him, and despite his protestations to the very end that he was innocent of the crimes for which he was convicted. Kay Bailey Hutchison is a supporter of the death penalty. She raised in her campaign against Rick Perry, though, the fact that Perry had intervened in a panel looking into the evidence against Cameron Todd Willingham. Hutchison said that in messing with that panel, Rick Perry both made a mistake and was, quote, trying to ramrod a covering up. Again, this was not in the general election. This is not Rick Perry running against a Democrat or running against somebody who is anti-death penalty. This was a race of two vehemently pro-death penalty Republican candidates in Texas, which made it a surprising choice for the Kay Bailey Hutchison campaign that they would go after him on the case of Cameron Todd Willingham and whether or not he should have been executed. That said, neither of those surprising choices worked out for Kay Bailey Hutchison. Ultimately, in the primary, she lost to Rick Perry by 20 points. And neither of those attacks by her seem to have carried over into Rick Perry's next campaign, which, of course, is the one he is in now, trying to win the Republican presidential nomination. The other candidates he is up against in this race are throwing a million things at Rick Perry in terms of his record, but they are neither explicitly nor implicitly accusing him of being gay. And the Cameron Todd Willingham case, in that case, frankly, Rick Perry is all but wearing that one like a badge of honor.
Governor Perry, a question about Texas. Your state has executed 234 death row inmates, more than any other governor in modern times. Have you Have you struggled to sleep at night with the idea that any one of those might have been innocent?
No, sir. I've never struggled with that at all. The state of Texas has a very thoughtful, a very clear process in place of which when someone commits the most heinous of crimes against our citizens, they get a fair hearing, they go through an appellate process, they go up to the Supreme Court of the United States if that's required. But in the state of Texas, if you come into our state and you kill one of our children, you kill a police officer, you are involved with another crime and you kill one of our citizens, you will face the ultimate justice in the state of Texas, and that is you will be executed.
Not only is Governor Perry not losing sleep over executing prisoners, but he rather expertly turns even a question about it around into an opportunity to get the crowd to root for him, to root for him essentially in unison against these kinds of monsters who are coming into Texas and doing monstrous things to find themselves on death row. It's the same way Governor Perry handled it during the Kay Bailey Hutchison race when she brought up the Willingham case. When she accused him of the covering up, his campaign responded like this. He said, if you, quote, oppose the death penalty for someone who murdered his 3 children, beat his wife while she was pregnant with twins in an effort to force an abortion, repeatedly changed his story, who confessed, and whose last words were an obscenity-laced tirade aimed at his ex-wife, and whose conviction was upheld numerous times over the course of more than a decade, including 9 times by federal courts, then they should just say so. So the idea was, what are you, on his side? This monster? You're worried about this guy's execution? That means you're on this monster's side. This is why it is hard for anybody to make political hay, to get political traction out of alleged bad treatment of allegedly bad guys. This is why when politicians get involved in crime and justice issues, the policy always changes in one direction. It almost always becomes more conservative than it was before the politicians got involved. The political defense against claims that you are badly treating criminals or suspects or protesters or prisoners has always been to point at those people and say, you're taking these guys' side? These are the bad guys. You're going to take their side? So these debates always go in the same direction. And it has always been true and may always be true that nobody has ever lost a race for governor in Texas or a Republican primary because they mistreated a bad guy. That has never been used successfully against somebody in American politics. At least it very rarely is. And that will be comforting to the governors of Florida and Georgia, frankly. Today in Florida, yet another delay in an execution. There have been 7 this month nationwide. Florida kills its prisoners with a lethal drug cocktail that includes a new drug, something called pentobarbital. Makers of the previous drug in the cocktail stopped making it so it could not be used to kill prisoners. The maker of the drug, the new drug, a Danish company, does not want their product to be used to kill people, and they have said so over and over and over again, but the states have gone on killing their prisoners with it. So the company announced this summer it would no longer sell pentobarbital to prisons in death penalty states. Nevertheless, Florida has a stockpile. Today, hours before Florida was scheduled to carry out the execution of this man, Manuel Valle, the execution was delayed pending a review by the Supreme Court of requests for a stay, in part because this man's lawyer said the new death penalty drug would cause him substantial harm. The Supreme Court decided not to block the execution, and the state of Florida went ahead with it. Manuel Valle was declared dead at 7:14 p.m. Eastern. Also today, it was announced that a memorial service would be held Friday and a funeral on Saturday in Savannah, Georgia, for Troy Davis. Mr. Davis, of course, was executed by the state of Georgia last week, despite the fact that 7 of the 9 witnesses against him recanted their testimony, and 3 jurors who sentenced him to death now say, or who voted to convict him now say they have significant doubt in that verdict. And today also, the largest jail in the world, which naturally is in America, also ended up in the news. Did you ever see the movie The Hangover? I personally have not seen the movie The Hangover, but it is very, very popular among the Rachel Maddow Show staff. I know that because I asked today if people had favorite clips, and it was like a giant fight, people fighting over what we should show from The Hangover.
I looked everywhere. Nobody's seen Doug.
I don't think I've ever been this hungover.
What's on your arm? You were in the hospital last night.
The only important thing now is that we find Doug.
Where's your car, officers?
Oh, yeah.
One of the executive producers of that very popular movie, one of the executive producers of The Hangover, is a man named Scott Budnick. And Scott Budnick, in addition to being a big deal Hollywood producer, he does something altruistic and civic-minded and self-sacrificing and very cool. He volunteers teaching writing to people in jail in L.A. He has done it for years. And about 5 years ago, he actually won Los Angeles Volunteer of the Year award in the district in L.A. in which he lives because he does this work. Today in Los Angeles, Mr. Volunteer of the Year, the man who was the producer of The Hangover, had a sworn legal declaration released by the ACLU in which he describes the multiple times he was in Los Angeles jails and saw sheriff's deputies beating people up. People who were imprisoned there, people who were not fighting, not resisting, not provoking anything, not doing anything to deserve getting beaten up, but getting beaten up and in some cases, getting beaten up badly. Mr. Budnick in his declaration says things like, quote, "I then saw the deputy grab the inmate's head and smash his head into the wall hard. It was so hard that I could hear an audible crack when the deputy slammed his head against the wall. At no point did I see the inmate do anything to any of the other prisoners or the deputy. In fact, the inmate was very respectful to the deputy. After I saw this, I quickly went back inside the classroom." The biggest jail in the world, the biggest jail in the country, and the biggest jail in the world is now in trouble. The FBI has been investigating the LA County jail system in secret for months now. Part of the reason the jail found out that the FBI was investigating them in secret is that people in the jail, people who work in the jail, found that a prisoner inside the jail had a cell phone. They're not supposed to have cell phones. And it turns out the FBI had allegedly paid a bribe to a sheriff's deputy, $1,500, to give that cell phone to the FBI's informant inside the jail so the informant could use the phone to call out to the FBI and tell them what he was seeing there for their investigation. One local Los Angeles news station, KTLA, has also done an exclusive report earlier this year on a gang in that prison. Not a gang of prisoners, but a gang among the jail guards. A gang among the prison's sheriff deputies. That gang stands accused of, among other things, assaulting this former prisoner, a man named Evans Tutt. According to Mr. Tutt, he was beaten with flashlights and kicked repeatedly by the deputies despite complying with their orders.
At least 3 of the deputies involved in Tutt's case are part of a group who call themselves the 3000 Boys, named after the 3rd or 3000th floor of Men's Central Jail where they're assigned. The group works hard and they play hard. As a symbol of their bond, they flash gang-like hand signs, 3 fingers for 3000. They sport similar tattoos. One even has their number inked onto his neck.
There is a distinct line drawn between inked and non-inked deputies.
The ink that this current active LA County Sheriff's deputy is talking about are the tattoos worn by groups of deputies as symbols of their allegiance to deputy-affiliated gangs within the department.
They call them subgroups, secret societies.
Do you think these groups breed a propensity for violence?
They brag about it. They brag about kills and deputy-involved shootings.
The sheriff in charge of the Los Angeles County jail system acknowledges these groups exist